Welcome back to the channel. This is Trinity Storm and you are watching third part of What If Kid Naruto Was Raised by a Legendary Witch. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now wasting no time, let's start the story.
Tizuna felt anxious. A lot of worry. He was so scared that he wished for the biggest barrel of sake this side of the elements. What was wrong with Tizuna? Not hard. His daimyo, the great Maleficent, was looking over the bridge he had built over the last couple of years. She was looking at the building that Tizuna, his crew, and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into making. Her muscles and back hurt because of it. It had taken years to build this huge building, which she had approved of, blessed, and helped pay for. Now, his daimyo was walking along the bridge to see if it was good enough to be used for trade. Oh, Kami, he really needed a drink. Most impressive, Tizuna, Maleficent said as she walked around and looked over the side of the building to see how high they were above the water. Thank you, Your Majesty. Your praise makes me feel small, said Tizuna as he bowed to her. With this bridge, our ability to trade will grow by at least 3 times. We'll be able to reach lands that aren't connected by water. What do you think, my son? Maleficent asked Naruto as he looked at the bridge himself. It's impressive, Ka-san, there's no doubt about that, Naruto said. But I think we should add some kind of security checkpoints for the samurai when they are posted here to make sure we don't let just anyone into Wave Country. Maleficent nodded in agreement. Yes, we can do that later. First, we need to finish the bridge as a whole, my son. Once that's done, we need to talk to the Fire Daimyo about using his trade routes to get to our future trading partners, Maleficent said. Naruto nodded, and Tizuna looked very happy that his daimyo was happy. He would have to make those extra parts for the samurai if he wanted them to protect the bridge from bandits and other bad guys, but that could happen later. He just finished a building project that was so big that it broke all building records. It was time to party and drink sake. Now all the bridge needs is a name, said Kaiza, who was Tizuna's son-in-law and also worked on the project. Yes, it does. Such a beautiful structure deserves a name that fits it, and as the person who built this bridge, I think it's only fair that you, Tizuna, give it a name that fits it, Maleficent said, leaving Tizuna stunned. Me? Give it a name? I don't know what to call it, to be honest. I'm not good at coming up with great names, Tizuna said with a sheepish look. Maleficent said, I see. What about you, Kaiza? Kaiza shook his head. I don't know what to call it either, Kaiza said to Maleficent, who was thinking about it while looking at her son. I think you, Your Majesty, would be the best person to name the bridge. Maleficent was curious when she saw Naruto close his eyes and think deeply about the name of the bridge. What do you think, my son? You must have an idea about the name, right? She asked. Naruto said, I think it should be called the Great Maleficent Bridge, after you Ka-san. It's only fair, since Wave Country wouldn't be what it is today without you in many ways. Maleficent looked a little surprised that he would want to name the bridge after her. She was raising such a kind child. Definitely a gift from nature and the gods. The Great Maleficent Bridge, Maleficent said, does have a nice ring to it. Tizuna and Kaiza nodded in agreement, since the name did sound catchy when spoken. I think it's perfect. It's named after the Super Wave Daimyo who is responsible for Wave Country's growing prosperity, said Tizuna. Maleficent smiled for a moment before nodding in a gracious way. All right. As the daimyo of Wave Country, I have the power to say that this structure will always be called the Great Maleficent Bridge, said Maleficent. Naruto nodded, and Tizuna and Kaiza cheered. Soon, everyone in the country would party. A small group of Konoha Anbu members watched Maleficent from a tree line far away from the main land of Fire Country. Borax, Hawk, what do you see with your eyes? As the person named Hawk used his Byakugan to get a better look before ducking behind his mask. Hawk was shocked by what he saw. Her chakra is huge. It looks like a bottomless pit that never ends. Is it the same kind of chakra you saw years ago? Neko asked Hawk as she saw him nod. Hawk had been looking for 3 people who had been taken, but now only 2 people have been found. It was much weaker back then, but it's still the same. This woman, whoever she is, has a lot of power inside her, Hawk said as the Anbu looked at each other. Boar asked their Anbu captain Neko, who was thinking for a moment, should we tell Sandame-sama about this, or should we just stay and watch? We'll stay and watch, but Hawk should also go tell Hokage-sama. With Hawk's eyes seeing what they did, Hiruzen won't be able to doubt that this woman was the one who did the kidnappings years ago. He can use this information as leverage in trade talks with the Fire Daimyo, said Neko, and Hawk nodded because this was important information. Right, said Hawk as he left to report what he had found. No one in the Anbu saw the crow with the Sharingan eyes watching them from a branch high above them before it flew away silently. After 2 weeks. Do you have to go, Grandpa? Asked Inari, who was 8 years old and standing next to his mother, Tsunade, and stepfather, Kaiza. In a way, Inari was wasting time because his grandfather was about to get into the big carriage with Maleficent, who already had Itachi and Anko in animal form with her, and Naruto, who was already in the carriage. Haku was in charge, and Tayuya and Karen were disguised as handmaiden servants. A spell was cast around them to change the color of their hair and eyes to hide the fact that they were Uzumaki. For now, at least. They still had their powers, but no one would know that it was because they were from the Uzumaki clan. Sorry, Inari. It's on Maleficent-sama's orders. She wants the Fire Daimyo to know who gets credit for building the super bridge that your father and I helped build. Plus, I may have to answer any questions about the bridge that may come up during the talks, like how strong it is, how well it can withstand the weather, and other things related to its overall construction, said Tazuna while rubbing his grandson's hair. But why? Asked Inari. Tazuna gave him a small shrug. It's just the way it is, Inari. Remember, merchants are going to cross this bridge to sell and buy goods from Wave. They will want assurances that this bridge won't fall apart before they get halfway to the main island. If they don't have assurances that the bridge is stable and will last, they won't do business with Wave at all, Tazuna said as Inari frowned. That's stupid. You built the bridge, so of course it's safe. Said Inari, while Tazuna laughed. I wish everyone trusted me and believed in my skills as much as you do, Inari, said Tazuna as she got into the carriage while Haku, dressed as a masked ninja, drove it with a group of samurai on either side. Maleficent told the girl, it's time to go, my dear. We have a meeting to get to, and I won't be late. She then tapped the carriage with her staff to let the girl know they were ready to start their journey. Haku whispered, yes, Maleficent-sama, before she told the horses to start walking to the fire capital. The capital of Fire Country 2 days later. The Wave Daimyo is here, said Asuma when he saw the carriage pull up to the gate leading into the courtyard and the Fire Daimyo's castle beyond it. Good. Who else is with her? Hiruzen asked, since he had asked the Fire Daimyo to let him be there and had made Tsunade the temporary Hokage to run Konoha while he was away. He also made it so that she would be the real Hokage if things got bad here and he was killed in the battle. Even though the Sandaime didn't think it would come to that, it was better to be ready just in case. It also helped stop Danzo from becoming the Hokage, which was one of his goals. Some masked ninja. Maybe hired protection like the samurai. I don't see a headband, but the mask looks like the ones the hunter nins from Kiri wear. Strange. I also see 2 girls dressed as handmaidens next to the masked ninja, said Asuma. Hiruzen frowned because he remembered Jiraiya saying that 2 girls had been taken from Orochimaru. Do they have red hair? Hiruzen asked as he looked too. No, they're brown and black, and they don't walk like ninjas either. Their walking style is too weak, and I can't feel anything even remotely strong in their chakra signature, Asuma said, making Hiruzen's eyes narrow. We'll see, Hiruzen said as he turned to look at the open door and saw the people who came out. First, it was an old man with glasses who looked a little dirty even though he was dressed up for this event. A help, maybe? Or maybe a servant? The second was a young boy dressed from head to toe in ninja clothes. Only his eyes were visible, but it was hard to tell what color they were from where they were. But the child's level of chakra was very high. It almost shocked every sensor ninja around the Fire Daimyo's castle, and now everyone who could sense it, whether they were good at it or not, is looking at it. And finally, Maleficent herself stepped out of the carriage in all her dark glory. The boy offered his hand to the woman, who took it, smiled at the boy, and stepped out of the carriage as gracefully as any royal person would. Asuma said, so that's Maleficent. I've got to say, horns and all, she's pretty, and Hiruzen nodded, agreeing that the woman in all black was pretty in her own way. But why are they all black? She looks like a person who is sad. Hiruzen thought, all she needs is a veil over her face, and she would look the part. Then he looked at the boy with a lot of chakra who was looking around for possible threats to the Wave Daimyo. Asuma asks, how can that Gaki have such huge chakra reserves? They seem to be at least as big as yours, if not bigger. He had felt his father's chakra as a child and now as an adult. Even though the chakra in the Sandaime had gone down, as it usually does with age, the man still had a lot of extra chakra. Back when Sarutobi Hiruzen was feared by many, this 12-year-old boy was almost as strong as his father in terms of chakra. Yes, it is very strange. Just look at Maleficent's shoulder, said Hiruzen as Asuma blinked and widened his eyes. Asuma whispered, a crow and a snake, and Hiruzen agreed. Itachi and Anko, Hiruzen said, which means that the boy with her is Naruto. His son nodded. Asuma said, and Hiruzen agreed, that explains why his chakra is so big. The kid is a walking chakra battery, after all. Make sure to tell the Fire Daimyo about this when you talk to Maleficent. I'll be watching from a distance as Jiraiya tries to figure out how to get Itachi and Anko out of their animal forms while she is in front of our daimyo. If we can show her to be a liar and kidnapper, we can get a good start on reclaiming them all from the woman and avoiding a possible war between the two nations. Asuma asked Hiruzen, whose eyes were getting a little harder, what if Maleficent won't give them up, and it does turn into a war between two countries? Then Konoha and the samurai army of the Fire Daimyo make it easy. Itachi and Anko are important ninja of Konoha. Naruto is important to the balance between all 5 shinobi villages and must stay in Konoha to defend its walls no matter what, Hiruzen said, and Asuma looked at him for a second. Asuma said, with Hiruzen's eyes softening a bit, I don't mean to insult you, Dad, but you almost sounded like Danzo there for a second, minus the emotions or weaknesses and must be removed part. I know, but when it comes to the Jinchuriki as a whole, we agree on one thing. A person like Naruto must stay in Konoha and protect the future of the village, Hiruzen said, while Asuma sighed. Asuma asks, even if it means ruining the boy's happiness? His father, to his surprise, nodded. Yes. Even if means taking that happiness from Naruto. He will understand one day. It is for the greater good. He must sacrifice his happiness for the sake of those in the village. My sensei and his wife did it before they died, Minato and Kushina did it, and Naruto can do it too. It's his purpose. It is the cycle that cannot. That must not be broken now of all times when shadows stir with unrest, replied Hiruzen while Asuma frowned further at him. Asuma asked Hiruzen, who was quiet for a moment, you talk about people sacrificing themselves for the greater good. When was the last time you gave up something for a good cause? Hiruzen said, I've never had to give up anything for that cause. It's always been the people around me who pay the ultimate price. Asuma sighed again. Asuma said, that's why you don't feel as bad as you should about wanting to take Naruto away from this woman, who clearly treats him like her child. Just don't be surprised if that's the case here between them and you unknowingly unleash a mother's wrath down upon us when you make your move, and then she went to tell the Fire Daimyo that Maleficent had arrived. The room for meetings. The Fire Daimyo sat in his chair with his paper fan in his hand and wiped his face over and over to stay cool while he waited for Maleficent to come. In reality, he was a little nervous about meeting this woman because he had heard stories about her power and how she killed an A-ranked missing nin from Kiri with it. Usually, the Fire Daimyo dealt with male feudal lords. This meant drinking expensive sake, playing a friendly game or two of shogi, in which both daimyos sometimes cheated to win, and talking about all the beautiful women they see in their lands and telling stories about their time with their mistresses instead of their wives. Then what? This was not the same. This leader was a woman. Someone who might or might not like sake. Who might or might not like to kill time by playing shogi and cheating when their opponent isn't looking. And someone who would definitely not tell lewd stories about the beautiful women they had slept with. The Fire Daimyo also knew that this woman was only in town for business. So there was no way that Fire Country could drag this out with sake and shogi to make more money. Her Majesty, the Daimyo of Wave Country, the beautiful and wise Queen Maleficent, and her court, said a servant of the Fire Daimyo as everyone stood up or straightened up if they were already standing. The group of samurai who were following the woman walked in and formed 2 single lines with their hands on the hilts of their swords. Then, Maleficent walked into the room, looking like a queen. Tizuna was standing next to the former fairy queen. He was wearing a very nice suit that he hadn't worn since his daughter's wedding to Kaiza 2 years ago. Naruto, dressed as a ninja, was on his mother's right, and Haku, also dressed as a ninja, was on her left. Itachi and Anko were in their animal forms. They were both on Maleficent's shoulders with the 2 handmaidens, and walking a good distance behind the Dark Witch. Your Majesty, Maleficent said, giving the fire daimyo a small royal bow while her son Haku and handmaidens did the same. The fire daimyo said to Maleficent as she smiled at him, "Queen, you brought quite a group with you. I didn't expect to see such a big group here with you." "Perhaps, but this is a very important day for Wave. I brought Tizuna because it was his idea and he was in charge of building our bridge. I thought the nobles and you would have questions about the bridge, and he would be the best person to answer them," Maleficent said as they moved to the meeting table where several nobles were sitting and several of the Guardian 12 were standing behind the chair where their feudal lord would be sitting. The Sandame Hokage was standing off to the side, keeping a sharp eye on everything and listening to everything with an analytical mind. Several Anbu were standing around him. 2 of them were from the Branch family and had the Byakugan. One was from the Inuzuka clan, and the other was from the Uchiha clan. In fact, the Uchiha in question was Itachi's mother, and she wasn't going to let this witch keep her son from being free. Back in the past, Jiraiya was in sage mode and watching Maleficent's power through his own senses. She has a lot of power. I can tell the boy is Naruto by how much chakra he has, and the 2 of them together make me feel like I'm standing next to a chakra made ball the size of the sun, Jiraiya thought as he watched the woman sit down in the chair meant for her and Naruto and Tizuna sit down in the chairs that were quickly set up for them. Haku stood between Naruto and Maleficent, looking like he was on high alert for trouble. The handmaidens stood on the other side of Maleficent and Tizuna, looking forward and ready to do whatever their mistress told them to do. Since this is a trade negotiation, I'd like to start by asking why you wanted to build a bridge in the first place. Wave usually sells and buys goods through the shipping lanes on the seas. Why the sudden change in your trading policy? Asked the fire daimyo as he waved his fan back and forth. It's simple, Your Majesty. Shipping is easy from the seas because my country has many ports, but I know that you can't go wrong with a route that doesn't involve the sea. What if the ships of Wave or the ports themselves were embargoed? Or what if there was a blockade that stopped supplies from coming in or going out by sea? Without the bridge, Wave would be doomed to a recession. But you need my trading lanes in my country to make your dream of trading with these countries come true, said the fire daimyo. He wanted to show her that his country had a big advantage in this situation and that he was going to use it to get what he wanted. Yes, I do. I have the resources your country wants, and you have the roads we need to trade with other countries that have similar goods. We're equals in that way, giving and taking from each other, Maleficent said, while the fire daimyo frowned because she had a point. However, I think using my trade routes to reach future business partners requires my country to get a significant price discount, said the fire daimyo. Maleficent frowned a little at his greed, but she did expect it since this was a negotiation where both sides had to give and take. And it was clear that this man was after a lot from her. Maleficent asked the nobles, who were eagerly waiting for her to agree to whatever the fire daimyo said was a fair discount, and what would you consider a big discount? I think a 75% discount is fair, said the fire daimyo, who thought the woman didn't know enough about business and negotiations to deal with him. A 75% discount? Are you crazy? Asked Tizuna, who knew that a 75% discount was already crazy. No one asked you, commoner, said a noble in a condescending way. Yeah, well, I don't need your permission to speak, you snooty two-faced noble. I built that bridge. I and every hard-working person in Wave put all our efforts into making that bridge to make our country prosper. We did not build that bridge so that some nobles and daimyo next door can set the rules for trading, and to get screwed over by selling goods at low prices that do more harm than good. Yelled Tizuna. It would be cheaper to ship the goods overseas and sell them somewhere that doesn't need them. You are using my country's trade routes. My country is your only way to get to the rest of the lands that can't be reached by sea. Without what I have, your bridge was just a waste of your time, money, and resources, said the fire daimyo as his nobles said the same thing. I see, Maleficent said with a face that was hard to read as she looked at the ball on her staff. The fire daimyo asked the woman, so you agree with the trade terms I've set for our 2 countries? He expected a simple yes or no from the woman. No, Maleficent said, and the fire daimyo and his nobles' smiles disappeared. No? How can you say no? Asked a noble on the fire daimyo's far right. Maleficent asked Tizuna, how long will it take to build another bridge, maybe one that goes all the way to hot water country this time? The master bridge builder looked at her in shock before he understood what she meant. It will take a little longer than the last one we built because hot water country is a little farther away than fire. But I'm sure we can do it if we work hard enough and give it enough time. In fact, We might make more money there than here, since hot water country is the most popular place for tourists because of its hot springs and other vacation spots. We could easily trade twice as much as we do here and make up for our losses by the end of the year, Tizuna said. Wave was doing well financially when they built the bridge that now connects Fire Country to Wave, and they had enough money left over to build another bridge if they needed to. What? You'd spend even more money to build a second bridge and do business with that other country instead of us? Yelled a mad noble who was sitting 2 seats to the left of the Fire Daimyo. I would, yes. Even though my people would be very upset that the time we spent building our new bridge was a waste, I will tell them what was on this table. How the daimyo of this country wanted a big discount on everything sold here in exchange for using your trade routes to reach other places. We couldn't afford to give you that discount because it would mean that you would get all the benefits of all the hard work that went into making such a grand building, Maleficent said calmly as she looked at the angry Fire Daimyo and his nobles with an annoyed look of her own. You are being unreasonable, Your Majesty, said the Fire Daimyo, with Maleficent now looking at him with narrowed eyes. Would you say that if you were on the other side? Maleficent asked in a calm voice. The Fire Daimyo made a face of irritation because he knew she was right. If they were swapped, the Fire Daimyo knew that he would be insulting her right now and walking out of the meeting room without looking back. We are willing to give Fire Country a discount, but not so much that you screw us over in making a profit to recoup some of the money spent on building the bridge, Tizuna added, since he wasn't against giving a discount, just the size of the discount and the fact that the percentage offered was insulting. 60% off, said a noble standing right next to the Fire Daimyo on the other man's left. That's still too much. It's more than fair to give them 25%. Tizuna said in response, and the Fire Daimyo frowned because he didn't like that at all. The percentage you're offering is too low, and I won't talk to a commoner in your group, no matter how good they are at building bridges, said the Fire Daimyo, waving his fan in front of him. Only for it to start burning green and almost burn him too. No one could see the glowing tip of Maleficent's index finger on her left hand because the table was too high, but the smirk on her face made it clear that she was to blame, even though no one could prove it. Watch what you say about people who are with me, Your Majesty. I don't like it when people who think they are better than my people make fun of them, Maleficent told the still stunned Fire Daimyo and his small group of nobles sitting on either side of him. Before the Fire Daimyo could even think of a response, his Guardian 12 Ninja Protector Sarutobi Asuma leaned down and whispered in his ear. The bearded shinobi had just gotten a signal from his father to tell the feudal lord a few things and have him use them in the negotiations to get what they wanted. As for the Fire Daimyo, he listened carefully to what Asuma had to say while looking from Maleficent to Nar. Maleficent looked at them with a definite frown, and when she looked over, she saw the Sandaime Hokage sitting in a chair on the other side of the room. So, the old Hokage over there is planning to use this against me to get Naruto into his village's ranks. Never. Thought Maleficent, who was not afraid to turn every fool in this room into a big pile of ash. Maleficent-sama, I need to ask you something important before I even think about negotiating with you further. Are you familiar with Fire Country? Is it Konoha? Asked the Fire Daimyo as a servant handed him another fan to put on his face. Me? Where? In Konoha? No, I don't believe that. Maybe close to it, but I've never been in the village itself, Maleficent said, since it was true that she had never been to Konoha. Technically, the Forest of Death wasn't even a part of Konoha, even though it was a training ground for the more experienced shinobi in the second part of the Chunin exams when needed. Instead, it was a line of defense against enemy shinobi who might try to invade Konoha. I see. So you wouldn't have been responsible for several kidnappings that happened a little over 5 years ago when you said you were near Konoha? Asked the Fire Daimyo, while Maleficent looked at him with a curious look on her face and then giggled, which turned into a full-blown laugh. Oh, no. This is a lot of fun. To think that the Fire Daimyo himself would say that I did something so terrible to someone who didn't want it. I dare to say that you must be desperate if you are accusing me of taking people from Konoha against their will without any proof. Is this some kind of trick to get me to agree to your trading terms? Maleficent said as she looked at Naruto, who was giving the Fire Daimyo a small glare. She then put a gentle hand on the boy's shoulder to calm him down. Don't give away her hand yet unless you have to. The boy sitting next to you is the proof of what you've done, said the Fire Daimyo, as Naruto's eyes hardened even more. Who is he? Who is he? Are you kidding? Maleficent asks in a funny voice. Is it true that the boy sitting next to you is Naruto Uzumaki and that you took him from Konoha more than 5 years ago? The fire daimyo asked in an accusatory tone as he looked at Naruto with more interest. Should I show you who I am, Ka-san? Naruto whispered as Maleficent looked from the fire daimyo to Asuma to the sandaime to Jiraiya in the back. In a moment, Maleficent whispered back. Well? Do you say that you didn't take the boy away from his home? A little impatiently, the fire daimyo asks. No. I don't say I didn't take him. Of course, it wasn't really a kidnapping because my son chose to come with me. Naruto, right? Yes, said Maleficent. Naruto nodded, and then he took off his ninja headgear to show the fire daimyo his blonde hair, blue eyes, and whisker-marked face. Jiraiya thought, he looks like a young version of Minato. Ma and Pa Toad both thought the same thing. I voluntarily left with my Ka-san. Anyone who says something different is lying. Naruto said as he looked the fire daimyo in the eyes. So, you, a boy of only 12 or 13 years old, are going to say that the Sandaime Hokage is a liar? To me? As Naruto looked from him to the Sandaime, who was now leaning forward and staring at the boy, the fire daimyo asked. If the shoe fits, Naruto said as he stared at the Sandaime Hokage, who was slowly getting up from his seat and making his anbu tense up. Jiraiya kept watching with eyes that were full of plans. What a joke. The Sandaime Hokage was called a liar right in front of us. He must be under some kind of spell from this woman. He should be taken away from her right away. A nobleman said as he pointed at Maleficent. Call it what you want, but I'm not leaving my Ka-san to go back to that hellhole. Naruto said angrily as his right hand twitched to reach for the seal on his left arm, just below his wrist, to bring out Kabikirabocho and cut off their heads. Even though Naruto was learning to be self-disciplined, he was still a boy with a temper and the urge to fight back when people insulted his mother. Watch what you say about my shinobi boy from the village. The fire daimyo said, it is the most powerful village in the world. He said this because he thought that insulting his shinobi village was insulting him as well. Your Majesty, no matter how you feel about Konoha in general, my son has told you he does not want to go back to the village, and as his mother, I'm inclined to respect his choice, Maleficent said, noticing that the fire daimyo was frowning. Your claim that you were his son is false from the start. You did not legally adopt him, and you are not his real mother. It doesn't matter how you say it, you can't be his mother, the Sandaime Hokage said as he walked over to stand next to his sons, who were standing behind the fire daimyo. I don't care what you say about my relationship with Naruto. Since I first met this wonderful child, I have raised, cared for, and loved him as if he were my own son. Which is more than I can say about how Konoha and you, Sarutobi Hiruzen, treated him for the first few years of his life. Maleficent replied, I wonder how your predecessors would feel if they knew how careless you were with this one child. Hiruzen narrowed his eyes at her. And why is this one Konoha child so important to you? You must have been able to find another child and legally adopt him or her. Asked the fire daimyo, who saw that there was more going on than he had thought at first. Maleficent smiled at her surrogate child and said, this one child is special in more ways than one. The child smiled back at her. The fire daimyo said, please explain, while the Hokage looked tense. You mean you have no idea? Your Hokage should have told you. I think he would, since his being here is obviously a plan to get me to do what he wants while we talk about getting my son back to his village. A village that thought it was okay to beat, starve, and hurt this wonderful child because of who he is and what's inside him. Or did your very smart Hokage decide to leave that part out as well? Maleficent said, as the fire daimyo frowned and looked at the Sandaime for answers. About what does she talk? Why didn't you tell me what was so great about the boy? Was this boy mistreated in Konoha while you were there? Is it true, Hiruzen, what she said? The fire daimyo asked, while Hiruzen looked nervous and Maleficent smiled at him. Well? Sandaime-sama, keep going. Say to him. Tell him and everyone else here how you let the son of your late successor, the Yondaime Hokage, suffer in a village that hates him for the biju sealed inside his body, said Maleficent. Jiraiya's and the Hokage's eyes narrowed at her words, and they both gritted their teeth when she said that, since few people knew the truth behind the lie about Naruto being in the village, but in a coma. What? The son of Yondaime? When the fire daimyo asked the Hokage about the Yondaime's son after the Kyuubi attack, the Hokage told him that the boy was dead. The fire daimyo was shocked and angry that the Hokage had lied to him. Naruto was getting more and more ready to kill him because of it, but Maleficent put her hand on his shoulder again to comfort him. Yes, Naruto is a Jinchuriki, but that doesn't mean he was abused like she said, Hiruzen said, as Naruto's killer intent came back and he reached for something with his left arm. Maleficent told Naruto to calm down. She told him, let him lie in front of his daimyo. It will only make him look like an incompetent leader and a fool in the end. Naruto obeyed slowly and bowed his head. Pardon me, mother. I didn't like how he was lying and calling you a liar at the same time. It's insulting, and I wanted to defend your honor as both my daimyo and my mother, Naruto said in a quiet voice as Maleficent smiled lovingly at him. It's okay, my dear child. I appreciate how protective you were of me. You were everything a mother could want in a son, Maleficent said as she ran her hands through her surrogate son's hair and saw that he was calm. What did you mean by letting the Sandaime lie to me? Asked the fire daimyo when he saw that the situation had changed drastically in front of him and made him look like a fool to the nobles, samurai, and even shinobi in the room. Rather than answer your question verbally, I think it would be best to show you actual physical proof of your Hokage's lie, Maleficent said. She then raised her left hand and, with a simple movement of her index finger, a piece of paper with writing appeared in the air and moved back and forth until Itachi, in his crow form, grabbed it with his beak. And then flew across the table to land in front of the fire daimyo to put the paper in front of him before flying back to Maleficent's shoulder. What is this? Asked the fire daimyo as he read the letter's contents. His eyes widened, and he glared at Hiruzen, whose face had turned pale. Where did she get that? The Hokage vault is supposed to keep that safe. Hiruzen thought this as Asuma winced when he saw the paper. Oh, Dad, she said. You didn't, Asuma thought, knowing that this was bad. As you can see, Your Majesty, Naruto's birth certificate shows that he is the son of the Yondaime Hokage and that his biological mother is an Uzumaki. The seal on the birth certificate is the Sandaime Hokage's, and his signature backs up the claim of legitimacy to everything his family owns in Konoha, Maleficent said as Jiraiya stared at her from the sidelines. Damn this horrible woman. She's not only making Konoha and Sensei look bad, but almost everyone who hates Minato and Kushina will also be out for blood against their son. Jiraiya thought as he could feel that Ma and Pa Toad were looking at him. You told us the tadpole died, Jiraiya, but you lied to us. Ma glared at Jiraiya. Jiraiya whispered, it was to protect Naruto, just before he got hit in the head. Don't you dare lie to us, Jiraiya. We could have protected the boy. With a special seal on him binding him temporarily to the contract, he could have been brought back to us at the first sign of trouble and even raised by us to learn things Konoha wouldn't let us. Exclaimed Pa, while Jiraiya frowned, knowing the Toad was right but still not liking to hear it. Jiraiya said, he had to make ties with Konoha, but the two toads on his shoulders hit him in the back of the head again. You mean chains. You know what it's like to be a Jinchuriki, Jiraiya. Your own spy network has probably heard about how the Jinchuriki from Suna and the two in Iwa were treated. The Mizukage himself has gone crazy and started a genocide because his hatred is the hatred that was unleashed on him as a child, and he's giving it back tenfold. Shouted Pa, while Jiraiya kept quiet. Is there anything else you want to say? Maleficent acts as the fire daimyo put down the paper and passed it to the next noble to read. That doesn't explain why you say Konoha abused the boy, the fire daimyo said calmly, but his faith in Konoha and the Sandaime Hokage had been shaken. If they lied to him about Yondaime's son being alive, were they also telling the truth when they said he was abused? Yes, that's right. I'm sorry, Your Majesty. I just wanted to give you and everyone else here something light to read before I showed you what I could bring to this table, Maleficent said. With another wave of her hand, she made a large stack of folders appear out of thin air and drop onto the table. Then came another. And one more, and one more, and one more, and one more. What is all of this? Asked the fire daimyo, and his nobles couldn't say anything because they didn't know what to say. My proof. Unquestionable proof of what I say is true and what Konoha says is false about Naruto's alleged abuse. I think you will find Konoha is not the great village your Hokage has told you it is, Maleficent said as she magically sent each folder to the fire daimyo and the nobles to read. One nobleman said, this is the boy's medical file. Because he saw medical reports and was shocked by some of the abuse the boy had to go through as a child. Yes, the doctors who treated my son at Konoha's hospital didn't do a very good job of fixing all the damage to his body, but ironically, it was the Biju inside of him who did all the hard work. Fortunately, I was able to use my own unique power to fully revitalize the damaged parts that not even the Kyuubi could heal properly, and he is now in peak physical condition for a boy his age, Maleficent said. With the seal that tied it to Naruto, the Biju could only do so much. One noble from before X, how can a child take so much abuse? Why didn't the Hokage do anything about it? As he read about one medical incident after another. Maleficent said, how indeed, but Hiruzen kept quiet because he wasn't ready to give up just yet. The boy is a citizen of Konoha, no matter what you did to help him. You still took him. As a daimyo, you have diplomatic immunity, but Naruto is not, and he must come back to Konoha with me, the Sandaime said firmly, while Maleficent's eyes narrowed. Maleficent asked the Sandaime when she saw him look at Naruto and then Jiraiya, back to Konoha. With you? Where he will be subjected to more of the village's abuse under your watch. To suffer both mentally and physically? To no doubt have his strength and memories sealed away so he can be re-educated to be the way you want him to be? I feared this would happen. She found a way to use this against us, even though we thought she was going to take the boy from Konoha. But that's the only way she did something wrong. Hiruzen stared at the woman and thought, the reason will make her look like an angel of mercy who saved a boy from a bad place and make Konoha look like the bad guy here. I'll take your silence as a yes, but I'm not giving my son to you or Konoha. Under my care and guidance, my surrogate son has become strong both physically and mentally. Compared to Konoha, which has abused the boy over and over again and kept his education below what a 6-year-old should have, who do you think is the best person to raise Naruto? Asked Maleficent, with Hiruzen now having a strong urge to kill her. Asuma whispered to his father, let it go for now. We've already lost. Talk about Itachi and Anko. The Sandaime told his son, the boy will be loved in Konoha. The people have changed since he left. Really? And if I were to show you and your daimyo otherwise? Maleficent acts after Hiruzen had been quiet for a second. The fire daimyo acts Maleficent with a smile, you can do that? Of course, like calling up my son's birth certificate or copy after copy of his medical file for you all to look at as much as you want, said Maleficent, whose staff's orb was slightly glowing. The Sandaime said, Your Majesty, I don't think now is the time for this, but the fire daimyo just gave him a look. I listened to you once before Hiruzen. You said that this would be an easy and profitable negotiation between our two nations, and that any additional terms would be accepted without resistance. You lied to me about the boy. You said he was a simple citizen of Konoha taken from your village, only to find out he is the son of Konoha's two greatest ninjas of their generation and was abused. Abused. Both mentally and physically under your watch. I couldn't because evidence and witnesses disappeared or refused to talk, said the Sandaime. Asuma frowned because he knew how that could have happened, and it seemed like everyone else did as well. Maleficent asked dryly, I wonder why, and she gave the people across the table a knowing look when they said that ninjas were keeping her son's attackers from getting the punishment they deserved. Hiruzen tried again to get back in charge of the situation by saying, there are people in Konoha who are willing to adopt and raise the boy so that he can become a ninja of the village. You mean Jiraiya of the Sannin over there? The boy's appointed godfather? The person his parents gave him to raise him after they died? Maleficent acts, and everyone on the other side of her gasped at this news. How did she know? Only Sensei, myself, Minato, Kushina, Tsunade, and Shizune know about it. Jiraiya thought this as he looked at the woman, who seemed very happy with herself. Hiruzen asked Maleficent, who was smirking at him, how did you get your hands on such secret information? Oh, I have my ways, Sandaime-sama. As for raising Naruto, I have cared for him more than either you or Konoha, Maleficent said, while Hiruzen gave her a dirty look. No matter what, we're taking the boy now. You have no legal right to take care of him, said the Sandaime, as Maleficent smiled at him. Really? No legal standing? And you do? I wonder how people in Fire Country, my own country, and other countries with their daimyos would react to hearing about this. How you were trying to force this boy to go back to an abusive village. Think of how the different nobles and other influential people will look at Fire Country. At Konoha? Think of the scandal it would cause? Maleficent asked while looking at the fire daimyo and his nobles who were paling at her. By Kami, she's right. If this got out, our reputation with the rest of the world would plummet. It would take years, maybe even decades to get rid of such a scandal. Any future trade agreements or negotiations with other countries, daimyos or nobles would be hampered by this. It would always be brought up and we'd have to explain why it happened. Yes, it would. Of course, it wouldn't have to get out. If you agree to my terms, Maleficent said as the fire daimyo and his nobles slowly nodded their heads in agreement. The fire daimyo acts, What are your terms? Your Majesty, there's one more thing I think you should know before we move on, Hiruzen said, trying to break this woman's seemingly unbreakable grip on the situation. Be quiet. You've done enough, Hiruzen. You're lucky I haven't removed you as Hokage right now, said the fire daimyo, who knew he had the right to do so. My terms are simple and fair. I'm not a cruel or spiteful person, so the deal about Wave Country's goods being sold here at a discount won't be taken off the table. After all, it would look bad on my part to hurt all of Fire Country just to hurt one shinobi village and the country's daimyo. As it is, I'm willing to give you a locket in exchange for letting us use Fire Country's key trading lanes. Someone to the fire daimyo's right axe, 15%? What happened to the other 25%? That was before when we were dealing with the simple fact that your side wished for a discount beyond what we wish to give. You will take what is offered here, or I will see to it that every country, noble, and influential individual in the entire world knows of the crimes committed against my son. And speaking of my precious child here, you will have Jiraiya of the Sannin officially relinquish his title as Naruto's godfather. Jiraiya will also forfeit any and all legal rights in claiming guardianship over my son. The same must be said with regards to Konoha claiming any and all right to him as their Jinchuriki. He can come to Konoha if he chooses at any time to claim his inheritance that was left behind by his parents, but they can never force him to stay there against his will. Not only that, but you will hereby acknowledge my adoption of Naruto to be completely legitimate in every sense of the word, replied Maleficent, with Hiruzen and Jiraiya looked like they were each ready to have multiple heart attacks. The fire daimyo axe, is that all? He hoped it was. Almost. You must also make sure that any scattered members of the Uzumaki clan are found and brought to me. If I can confirm that they are Uzumaki by blood, I will pay Fire Country a large sum for their help as a sign of strong ties between our countries. However, if you try to trick me with fake people, I will demand a large sum of money as a punishment for your trickery, he said. What? No. You have no right or claim to the Uzumaki clan or any of its members. Hiruzen protested, but Maleficent suddenly got up from her seat and let out a powerful wave of ethereal flame that lit up the whole room, putting an end to any more protests. Only Tazuna looked scared for a second before he figured out that it wouldn't hurt him. Do not talk to me about what is mine by right or not mine to claim in this world, you wretched old fool of a cage. You have no right to protest anything from me or to demand anything from my son. You would make sure that he didn't learn much in your village while demanding everything from him. If you so much as try to take or hurt my son in any way, I will bring about a fury and darkness that no mortal man has ever seen. Maleficent yelled. What about my son? Give him back to me. Makoto told Maleficent who she was when she took off her mask. She didn't want to lose her son. Maleficent said, so you're Itachi's mother. I can tell by the way you look at your son that you love him as much as I love Naruto. Makoto nodded and looked from the Dark Witch to her son in crow form on her shoulder. Please give him back to me. To the clan. I love my son. Please, I beg you. From one mother to the next, I beg you. Give him back to me. Pleaded Makoto as she saw the former fairy queen look from her to Itachi and give him a small nod before Itachi flew off her shoulder and turned into a man right in front of his mother. Itachi replied calmly, hello, Ka-san, as Makoto started to cry and hugged her son tightly out of fear that he would disappear. Itachi-kun, my son. You can come back to Konoha with me. Your father and clan miss you so much, Makoto whispered as Itachi shook his head and slipped out of his mother's grasp. I can't go back, Itachi told his mother, who was shocked and a little scared. What? Why? Maleficent let go of her control over you, right? Makoto asked as she looked at Maleficent, whose ethereal form filled most of the room and watched what was going on. Yes and no. In a way, I am free to go where I want, but I am still bound to serve her as any servant does their master. At first, I was turned into a servant against my will and made to serve Maleficent in any way she saw fit. However, the things I have seen, heard, and learned since becoming her servant have shaken my faith in Konoha. Shaken my faith in the clan, Itachi said, while Makoto looked shocked. Itachi shook his head as Makoto asked, what did you learn? What are you saying? Is she making you act like this? No. My mind is my own. I am not some mindless puppet that moves when she plucks the strings. I can speak my mind and offer my opinion on matters ninja-related. The same can be said for Mitarashi Anko, as she is in the same position as myself. As for what I have learned, I know about Sasuke and his mood toward me. I have seen the madness in his eyes. The darkness burning within them. I know of the Uchiha clan and their own form of restlessness. I know about Konoha celebrating Naruto's kidnapping when word got out about all three of us missing and celebrating again when they heard he was in a coma from the story the Sandaime created. I know the Hokage did it to keep the councils from demanding for the boy's capture to be brought back on charges of desertion, and while I am happy he did it, I do not agree with the end result of his reasons. I cannot go back to Konoha and continue to serve the Sandaime as a ninja of Konoha. I cannot go back to the Uchiha clan knowing it is falling slowly into madness. All I have left is my principles and my integrity, mother. I serve Maleficent Sama with a purpose beyond one of selfish desires. Even if I was not bound to her by the power she wields, I would still serve Maleficent willingly and faithfully as her loyal subordinate, answered Itachi, as he kissed his mother's head and walked backwards away from the woman before turning into a crow that flew back to Maleficent's shoulders. You have no right to claim those two as your own, said the Sandaime at last, while Maleficent glared at the Hokage and her fire seemed to grow around her. Shut up, you old fool. I won't say it again. Maleficent yelled as she pointed her left hand at the Hokage and sent him flying back. She then watched as his body hit the wall hard. Jiraiya yelled, "Sensei!" before he and most of the Anbu tried to attack Maleficent. She used her staff to freeze them in place, and then she threw them violently against the same wall she had thrown the Hokage. I've had enough of stupid shinobi for one day, Maleficent said as she looked at Mikoto and then back at the fire daimyo's face, which was still pale. I humbly accept your terms, Queen Maleficent, said the fire daimyo. Maleficent nodded as her power went back into her body. Good. I'm happy with this news. Also, I want Konoha to keep Uchiha Itachi and Mitarashi Anko out of the bingo book that all ninja use. They shouldn't be listed as missing ninja. The last thing I want is for every village to send their ninja after them because Konoha might want to put a bounty on their heads, said Maleficent, and the fire daimyo nodded as he looked at the contract. And put his seal on the document he signed, which made the trade agreement legally binding and official on every level. Done, the fire daimyo told the woman as she smiled and added her own magical signature and seal. Thank you, and because I'm in a giving mood, I've raised the discount on all goods sold to Fire Country to a solid 20% for the same amount of time as before, which is 5 years, Maleficent said. She got what she wanted, and discounts of 20% on goods wouldn't hurt Wave Country too much. In the long run, it wouldn't be hard for them to make up for it if other countries did business with them. The fire daimyo said, "Thank you, Maleficent Sama, for your kindness." Maleficent nodded and motioned for her group to follow her out. Naruto, wait! Yelled the Sandaime as he tried to get up. What is it? I have things to do, Naruto asked, giving the old man a quick glance. If you do come to Konoha, don't hate the people there. Not all of them hate you. I was telling the truth when I said there are people there who care about your well-being, Hiruzen said as Naruto frowned even more at him. Maybe there are people in it who care about me, but they are in the minority, and you haven't done anything to change that. As far as I'm concerned, Wave Country is my home, and its people are the ones I will protect with all my strength. If you send any ninja after me to turn me into a Wei and slave, I will kill them, Naruto said before he left with his mother, who put a comforting hand on his shoulder. All of them were amazed by the woman and her power, which seemed to come from another world. Maleficent said, "You did well, my son, but now that the world knows who you are, I fear your training will have to be doubled or even tripled from what it was before." Naruto nodded and put on his ninja headgear. Naruto said, "I understand, mother. Don't worry, I won't let anything happen to me that would hurt you." Maleficent smiled at him. Maleficent told Naruto, "There may come a time when you have to fight for someone other than me. I may not always be around." She said this because she knew there was always a chance, no matter how small, that someone could beat her in battle or even kill her. Maleficent knew that something like this would break her son's heart, so she wanted to make sure that if it did happen, Naruto would be able to move on and find people who could help him in his time of need. So, she got together with friends, family, and other allies she could trust to do this job for her. Maybe, but I'll make sure that day doesn't come for a long, long time, Naruto said as Maleficent held him close and continued to comfort him. Maleficent whispered, "Me too, my son." Me too, as she looked back and saw that Hiruzen was not happy with this situation, and it was clear that he was going to do something about it in the future. Men who didn't like each other and wanted power, even if they didn't know that was what drove them, were always making plans. She would have to make sure that this plan never worked and that her son was safe in case someone did try something. Even though the fire daimyo said so, Konoha would be one of the main threats to her son in the future. Even though it was part of a contract between two countries, that didn't mean the ninja of Konoha wouldn't try to trick her son into staying in the village against his will and lie about it until they got what they wanted from him. When she thought about something like that happening, her eyes got a little wider. She wouldn't let these idiots from Konoha or any other ninja village take her son and say they didn't do it. Oh no. She would punish those who tried, and those who did would regret the day they dared to challenge her power and her son. A few hours later, a guest room in the fire daimyo's castle. The daimyo of fire was not happy. Once his guests from Wave Country left, he let his ninja know how angry he was, and it was clear he wasn't happy about being lied to. The feudal lord told them to go to the room he had set aside for them as guests and told them that they would leave for Konoha the next day. The man felt sick just being near them, and he couldn't stand to see Konoha shinobi in his castle for more than a day. That's not good, sensei. The power of that woman was unthinkable. I've never felt like that in my whole life. She makes the rest of us look like kids. Jiraiya said that he thought she was strong when she was calm and dignified, but that was nothing compared to how strong she was when Sandaime insulted her and said she couldn't call Naruto her son. Not something you should do to a woman who wants to be a mother. Yes, that's true. Her power is without a doubt divine. Even more reason to keep Naruto from her. She is affecting him in a way that makes him hate Konoha, said Hiruzen, shocking the other Anbu in the room. With all due respect, Hokage-sama, you didn't exactly give the poor boy a reason to stay in Konoha when he was first offered an alternative to living there, Makoto said as Jiraiya and Hiruzen stared at her. No matter what Makoto does, the village is his home. He has to defend it and keep it safe, even if Konoha doesn't like him. Hiruzen said this with a lot of passion, but Makoto just shook her head. Hokage-sama, do you even hear yourself? You make it sound like Naruto should fight for Konoha even if they beat him. That it doesn't matter if they burn him, stab him, poison him, beat him, or treat him badly in any other way, as long as he fights for Konoha without any doubts. Makoto said, I don't think that's what his parents wanted, and you know it. She was still upset that Itachi was working for Maleficent, but she was glad to see his face again and see that he wasn't the mindless slave she thought he was. He had changed so much since she had last seen him. Makoto only hoped that Maleficent wouldn't mind if her son found that special woman. His parents have passed on. They gave Naruto to Jiraiya and me to take care of. Hiruzen said, I won't let this woman get in the way of my mission to raise Naruto. Makoto looked at him with disappointment. Hokage-sama, you can't beat her. She's too strong, Makoto said, and the Anbu members in the room nodded in agreement. Even though they would follow their Hokage, they didn't mind telling him they didn't agree with his plan to fight Maleficent. It is possible. This woman and I both have no problem getting involved in politics. So, we sort of put out a challenge. We'll ask Naruto to take part in the Chunin exams coming up in a few months under the guise that letting people see her son compete in an exhibition will help trade grow faster. We'll make it seem like doing this will not only help her country's economy but also show what a great parent she has become by raising him, Hiruzen said, while Makoto shook her head. This woman's not dumb. She is also not arrogant to think that what happened here today will do anything to keep Konoha away from Naruto. She will figure out something is up and say no. She gets everything she wants just by being patient. Also, who would you have Naruto fight in such a match? Makoto asked as she saw the Hokage look at Jiraiya, who nodded because he knew who the boy should fight. Kakashi Hatake. What better way for Naruto to show what he can do than to fight the last student of his father? Maleficent might be able to see through the trick, but the boy won't. He can use the idea that the woman is a good mother to him by making sure he is trained to fight strong opponents. If he agrees, Maleficent will too, and we can make rules that will bring Naruto to us if Kakashi wins, Jiraiya said, knowing that Kakashi was one of the best Chunin around and could beat the boy. You mean if Kakashi wins, which means that Maleficent has to agree to the match, since she has the last word on whether or not it happens. You're forgetting that Naruto was trained by two ninja who were both at least Chunin level. My son used to be in the Anbu, and Anko was in it for a short time. Makoto said, if I were Maleficent, I would have those two train him until not even a cage could stand up to him. She said this because she would have done the same thing for Itachi if she were Maleficent. If the woman wore any shoes at all. Maleficent's shoes couldn't be seen because of how long and flowy her dress was. That's enough. We still need to think carefully about how to do this. We still have a few months until the Chunin exams, so we can let things calm down between us and her. When the time is right, Jiraiya, I want you to talk to Maleficent about the offer and try to persuade her that the risk is worth it. Everyone here is not allowed to tell anyone in Konoha what happened or what they know about it. This is an S-level secret, and if you tell anyone, you and the person you told will both die, Hiruzen said. Everyone nodded. This won't end well. Konoha is heading in a bad direction. The Uchiha clan was one of them. My son's eyes are dark and crazy, and my husband is making it worse. How do I do it? My son is the only member of the Uchiha clan who is safe from everything going on in Konoha right now. That won't last long, though. Not if Fugaku has anything to say about it, and the Hokage just told me not to tell anyone what we saw here. It doesn't matter. Even if I could explain what was going on, it would only make the clan more angry and want more from Konoha and the Hokage to help them get their kidnapped clan member back. It could make things worse between the clan and the village, leading to more problems. So what do I do? Makoto thought, frowning because she didn't know what to do about what she knew would happen when she got back to Konoha. What about the clan leaders and councils, sensei? They will want answers, Jiraiya told Hiruzen as he reminded him that even though he had sworn his student in the Anbu here to secrecy, he would have to tell the others what happened at a meeting when they all got back. Once we're done telling them about things, the same will be true for them. If we're lucky, no one will really find out what happened here today, said Hiruzen, while Makoto rolled her eyes at the idea that what they had seen wouldn't be talked about in rumors and whispers. Information that shouldn't be shared always got out. Makoto knew that this was one of those situations where the truth would come out no matter how hard you tried to hide it. Daimyo-sama, I'm sorry, but it was done to protect the boy. His real father and mother had a lot of enemies. They would have come for him day and night to kill him out of spite, said Hiruzen. When Maleficent heard his answer, her smile got smaller. Sandaime-sama, you were right about one thing. His dad and mom had a lot of enemies, but none of them came from outside the village. He had them, but they came from inside him and still do. Or do you think that the people on both of your councils can't be accused of such things just because they are on those councils and say they are patriots of your village? Maleficent replied, as the Hokage narrowed his eyes at her again with anger. The ride back to Wave went without a hitch. As Maleficent expected, the Hokage and his group of ninja wouldn't try anything while she was going back to her country. Naruto stood next to her and looked out the window with a serious face. He was probably thinking about what happened with the Sandaime Hokage before they left. Maleficent could tell that the old Hokage had a big effect on the boy's mind, given how strong it was, and that he was trying to get Naruto to think about going back to Konoha. If the Dark Witch had her way, Naruto would take almost everything that wasn't nailed down and leave Konoha if they got back together. This would cause a major crisis in Konoha. Scrolls, weapons, and all kinds of knowledge that Naruto now owns because of what his parents learned over the years will be taken from Konoha and taken to Wave Country. My son is going to have a family. Maleficent thought that the Uzumaki clan would rise again and be a big part of Wave before she realized something was wrong when she got to her nation. Maleficent-sama, Maleficent-sama, yelled a samurai who looked like she had been in a fight when she got out of the carriage to find out why her country smelled like death. Maleficent asked the samurai, who was hurt, what is it? What happened? As he bowed low to her. We were attacked while you were away by a single boy with the markings of a ninja from Suna. He had red hair, a large gourd filled with sand, and a kanji for love tattooed on his forehead. We tried to get him to leave, but the sand in his gourd came out, almost alive, and tore through my unit. He's terrorizing the general population as we speak, Your Majesty. I think the boy is. Maleficent said, it looks like the Kazekage didn't take my threat seriously, or he did take it seriously and decided to respond with his own threat. The poor fool will pay for this, and then she looked in the direction where Gaara was attacking. Please leave, Your Majesty. We can't put you in needless danger, the samurai said, knowing that it was his job to protect this daimyo and keep her safe from this threat. I'm glad you're worried about me, young samurai, but I'm not helpless, and I'm not going to run away from this threat like a helpless woman. I'm not new to threats to my safety, Maleficent said before turning to her son and nodding. Haku, come with me, Naruto said, and the masked girl nodded. Then Naruto and the masked girl left to find Gaara. Take what's left of your unit in this group with me to secure the area where this Jinchuriki is attacking. Get as many people out of there as you can. Your job now is to protect the people of Wave. Don't worry about my protection. I have more than enough here with me. Tizuna, you can go home to your family. They should be safe where they are, but keep them at home until told otherwise, Maleficent told the group of samurai who were looking at each. Most people had seen her strength before. She wasn't some helpless girl who needed to be protected, which is why the legendary Sandaime Hokage was tossed around like a child. When she told Tizuna what to do, he just nodded and left to find his family before they walked into a war zone. Itachi asked Maleficent-sama when he changed back to his human form, "Do you want us to help Naruto at all?" "No, Haku is with him. I trust my son to beat this Jinchuriki. He needs to be in a place where neither you, Anko, nor I can help him," Maleficent said, and Itachi nodded. "But, Maleficent-sama, I think at least one of us should be close by, just in case," Anko said as Maleficent thought about it. Maleficent told Anko, "Okay, you can be near the fighting, but stay hidden and don't get involved unless it's absolutely necessary." Anko nodded and then went to follow her master's surrogate son. Itachi asked Maleficent, "The cage has gone too far. Do you want me to handle him?" Maleficent shook her head no. "No, his time will come, but not until we take care of his tortured son. When this is over, I will take care of the cage myself," Maleficent said in a cold voice that made Itachi shiver a little bit in fear. Hell is no place for a woman who has been wronged. Whoever thought of that little line-up must have seen or been there. Since the statement is true, I'm more likely to think the second, Itachi thought as he followed his mistress as they walked toward the castle. From there, they could see what was going on. Naruto and Haku are there. Haku said, "It's amazing how you can control the sand," and Naruto nodded. "Impressive, but still wild like an animal. He's not in full control like we're told. Look at the insanity. Look at the madness. His strength is in his rage, not in his control," Naruto said, and Haku nodded. Haku asks, "How do you want to move forward?" Naruto narrowed his eyes as he watched Gaara use his sand to crush everything that got in his way. All of his strength comes from using the sand in that gourd, right? If you take away his ability to use the sand, he's just a helpless child, Naruto said with a smirk. Haku asked Naruto, who looked at her for a second, "How?" "Simple. Water, and lots of it. When I tell you, hit him with as many needles as your bloodline will let you," Naruto said before coming out of hiding and getting Gaara's attention. "You are the one I'm looking for. You are the son of the daimyo of Wave. Your mother insulted my cage. I don't like the man, but he promised me your blood and the blood of your mother. I will feed this blood to my mother, who is rumbling inside of me," Gaara said, as his bloodlust drove him further into madness. "Idiot," Naruto said as he used hand signs to turn the water in the air around him into a spiral of water, just like Senju Tobirama did when he was young and water was scarce. The Uzumaki clan was the first to think that it might be possible to use water jutsu in this way. They had learned so much about different parts of nature that Orochimaru would have been jealous. It was first done to help people stay alive in harsh places like deserts, where water was scarce and there were no oases for miles. Mito told Tobirama these things a year after she got married to Hashirama. With her help, Tobirama came up with the idea of using water jutsus to turn the water in the air into water that could be used in battle or to help people live in places where water is scarce. Naruto was doing the same thing, but the spiral shape of the jutsu showed that this was an Uzumaki version of it. Gaara said, "No jutsu you have can hurt me," as he threw sand at Naruto. Naruto shouted, "Uzumaki style, multi-spiral water bullets jutsu." As the big spiral of water broke up into smaller spirals and turned into water bullets that were quickly fired at Gaara. The Suna ninja's sand turned into a shield as soon as he moved, and the boy grinned at his opponent's stupidity for trying to fight him with such a weak jutsu. At least 5 minutes went by without a break before the bombardment stopped. Gaara's smile got bigger as he told his sand to attack Naruto. He ended the match by offering the blonde's blood to his mother in his head, which made his smile get even bigger. But the smile didn't last long because the sand moved slowly when Gaara told it to. This made Gaara frown in confusion. Why didn't his sand move quickly? Why was it moving so slowly now? What was happening? There's something wrong. My sand isn't moving as fast as it usually does. Gaara thought to his sand, when I tell it to move, it doesn't move like it should. Instead, it moves slowly and sluggishly. His eyes widened as he realized what he was thinking. Finally figured it out? I guess you never went to the beach and played in the sand, or built sand castles while watching the waves crash into them. I'm surprised no one has ever hit you with a water jutsu until now, Naruto said as dry sand shot out of the gourd and tried to attack him. Gaara figured out what Naruto was doing by seeing him nod as he dodged his attacks. You put water on my sand to slow it down, he said. Of course. Sand gets soggy when it gets wet. It turns into a clumpy goo that looks like sludge but doesn't smell. All I have to do is drown you in water, Naruto said before he did the hand signs again and this time sent a water dragon at Gaara. Gaara scowled even more and put up a wall of sand to protect himself. Just like the last attack, this one was also very wet. Once dry, the sand could move quickly and crush its enemies just as quickly. Now, it's like the clumps of wet sand you see at the beach, slow and wet. But Naruto didn't stop with just one water dragon. He knew it wouldn't be enough to stop Gaara's sand, and it would be silly to think otherwise when you consider that the red-haired boy's gourd was filled with an almost endless supply of the dirt-like substance. Gaara threw his wet sand at the water that was coming at him and said, "You will die." He then focused on moving the wet earth slowly against the water, and making it go slower and slower with every second that passes. Foolish boy. For all your so-called mastery of sand, you still play with it like a child with a new toy. Your father was a fool to seal a biju inside of you and even more so to give your body such a faulty seal to hold Shukaku in the first place, Naruto said, sounding a bit like Zabuza. The blonde had the feeling that the demon of the mist would have said the same thing. Gaara yelled, "Shut up. I don't need to be lectured by a weakling like you." He was angry because Naruto and his father had both called him weak, and even though the red-haired boy didn't care much for the Kazekage as a parent, he felt the Uzumaki in front of him had no right to talk. Naruto asked Gaara, "If I'm so weak, why haven't you killed me yet?" As he kept pouring water on Gaara's sand, stopping it from moving forward and eventually pushing it back with each devastating hit. Gaara yelled, "Shut up." When he saw that his sand was leaking water like an overloaded sponge and looked like it was about to fall apart if things kept going the way they were. Not yet. The only way for you to really know how weak your level of power is without the sand to help you defend yourself is for me to break your defense before I break you, Naruto said. He then used his large amount of chakra to keep the water from the environment flowing as if it would never stop. That's incredible. Naruto-sama has a lot of chakra. Haku thought, since I've been in his service, I've never seen him use so much. The ground around them was full of water, but he knew it wasn't the right time to hit Gaara with her bloodline. It was almost right, but not quite. At the moment in Konoha. You lied to us, Hokage-sama, Homura said in a disapproving tone, and Kaharu and Danzo did the same with their faces. Most of the clan heads were watching, and the civilian council looked like they were about to blow their tops off with their own anger. It was a necessary lie. The people as a whole would have been in an uproar that we couldn't stop, and our enemies outside of Konoha would have gotten together once their spies found out the truth, Hiruzen said as he told what happened at the Fire Daimyo's castle during the trade talks with Maleficent. He filled them in on everything. Told them about how expertly Maleficent dealt with the Fire Daimyo and his nobles. How she openly admitted to stealing Naruto, which made him admit the lie he had told years ago and explain that the horned woman in black had taken the boy in and raised him as her own. She didn't say why, but she did say that Itachi and Mitarashi Anko had been taken into her service. The end result of telling them wasn't very hopeful. Maybe, but you should have told the clan heads, if not us, your shinobi council, the truth in secret. We could have helped plan to get all three of them back instead of believing a lie that two of them were kidnapped and our Jinchuriki was in a coma, Danzo said, though he didn't say how Hiruzen's actions would have been the same as his. Except that they sent wave after wave of root to infiltrate and kill wave during that time instead of waiting for politics to work. No matter what, the Fire Daimyo has agreed to the terms. They are binding, and any action we take against them would be seen as treason against him at the very least and a war against wave at the most. A war in which we would be in the wrong, and no one would help us, Hiruzen said while he, Jiraiya, and the Anbu were giving a detailed description of this woman's power. This woman is using our Jinchuriki for her own purposes. It won't be long before she has him attack us for what this village did to our weapon in the past. We must strike now while we still have the chance, said Danzo. The civilian council nodded in agreement, and Hiruzen's teammates seemed to like the idea based on their facial expressions. And risk a war with another country? Kumo or Iwa could use this to gain favor with Wave Country, Hiashi said, thinking that Kumo would be the first to join the fight if it meant they could get their hands on the Byakugan during the battles. Iwa would want the Jinchuriki dead just because he was the Yondaime's son. The Sandaime Tsuchikage would side with us if it meant his forces could get a shot at killing the demon container. Of course, he would fail, since we would bring our lost weapon back for proper re-education in serving Konoha properly, Kaharu said, while the clan heads, with the exception of the Uchiha clan head, were glaring at her. And not only that, but Kumo would rather go after the Uzumaki brat because of the Biju he has in the Uzumaki bloodline he got from Kushina. They will see Wave Country as a much easier place to fight and win against in the long run, said Homura, who didn't care about Yondaime, his wife, or his son because he thought the whole family would have been used as weapons of war had the parents lived. You didn't see what I did. What Sensei saw in that room. Maleficent's power is unreal. She doesn't need an army to defeat us in a war. She is the army. Add Naruto to the mix if he is being trained to fight, which I got the impression was happening from his attire, it would be one costly victory, said Jiraiya since he saw his godson had indeed changed from the picture Hiruzen had of him years ago. So what do we do? Let her raise the demon, let him get stronger, and when he's ready, let him come after us. Axe a member of the civilian council. No, there is a way. We just need to do our parts well, said Hiruzen before he told them the plan and how to get Naruto to stay in Konoha. As smart as this plan is, my old friend, this woman has no reason to take you up on your offer, even if it does bring Wave some publicity, as we would have her believe, Danzo said, while admitting that his former rival's plan was brilliant if he could get Maleficent to agree to Naruto coming to Konoha. That's why Jiraiya and Tsunade will go see her in the coming months. Jiraiya can't claim guardianship over him because of Maleficent's rules, but she can't deny Tsunade because they're related. It's a good thing I didn't say it at the end when Maleficent was there, or she would have stripped Tsunade of her right to him as well, said Hiruzen, knowing that. Kaharu asks, where is Tsunade? When she saw that the woman wasn't at this meeting. I told her everything earlier in private. Given the situation, I thought her inevitable bad temper would be better kept away from all of you. Considering how many people in this room don't call Naruto by his name or even with respect, be glad she's not here, said Hiruzen, as the civilian council complained about the Senju woman being rude to them and the shinobi council thought Tsunade might be a problem in the future. They didn't say anything because the Sandaime Hokage wouldn't let anyone talk badly about his students in front of him. Going back to Naruto. Gaara knew he couldn't win. He hated being wrong. He hated losing and knew it. He had no idea what it was like to lose to someone. Outside of his father, he was the strongest ninja in Suna. He was feared both inside and outside of Suna. Up until now, no one had hit him directly, either with their bodies or with a jutsu. But this Uzumaki Naruto was not like the other boys. Once there was enough water to cover the area, Naruto looked at the sand Gaara was controlling to see how fast it was moving. He saw that it barely moved at all. It would just hang there, like a cloud or something else that floats in the sky, and couldn't really go anywhere. As part of his plan to beat Gaara, the blonde Uzumaki moved forward quickly and hit the Suna ninja in the face with a strong punch. This, of course, showed Naruto another problem he hadn't thought of, since his fist hit something that wasn't flesh and didn't break Gaara's jawbones. The redhead did get hurt by Naruto's punch, but not as much as he thought, and the Uzumaki narrowed his eyes. Oh, I see. So you wrap your body in sand, too. I guess that was your last line of defense, Naruto said as he cracked the hand he used to hit Gaara. One can never be too careful, Gaara said. Then he got up and gave his enemy a mean look. Yes, but I think it's time to see how strong your sand armor really is, Naruto said before rushing forward again and hitting Gaara with a series of blows. My armor is getting broken. Gaara thought, he's hitting me from all sides, as he tried to use the sand he still had to defend himself against the wave daimyo's son. Gaara couldn't fight the enemy in front of him because he was too slow and didn't know what he would do next. When Naruto hit his opponent in the face with a vicious spin kick, it sounded like something outside of sand was breaking. The sound of something breaking inside the body in more than one place. Gaara's jaw was broken by the blow, and the red-haired boy passed out for a few seconds. Come on, Gaara. Don't be shy. Take off that armor and show us the real you behind your sand and madness. Naruto yelled as he threw punch after punch and kick after kick. Until Naruto gave Gaara a double fist punch to the upper and lower parts of his torso, which sent the boy flying back 10 feet. Gaara coughed up blood, and his mind was full of fear, terror, and anger all at once. Mother was yelling at him to do something or she would do it for him. I'm trying, Mother, but he's stronger than I thought. Please forgive me, Gaara begged as he shook on the ground like a scared child. Naruto asked Gaara, before kicking him in the stomach and watching the boy skid across the water, where is your pride as a Jinchuriki? Where is your determination to stand and face your enemy no matter what the odds are? Gaara yelled, get away. Stay away. And tried to throw what little dry or wet sand she could at Naruto, but nothing hurt the blonde. Your father really messed you up, and Shikaku isn't much better. When I bring your body to my mother, she'll have to fix that, Naruto said before telling Haku to do her thing. Haku said, Hijutsu, Sensatsu Suish. As she did hand signs with one hand and used her bloodline to make the water around Naruto rise, turn into a lot of sharp needles, and point at one Sabaku no Gaara. The Suna boy's last move destroyed what little armor he had left before he passed out from the pain while his mother yelled at him for being an idiot. Now I have to make sure Shukaku doesn't think of anything stupid, Naruto said as he used his chakra chains to stop the Biju inside Gaara from completely taking over its host. Which was good, because Shukaku was trying to do just that. He was yelling curses in a strange voice and threatening to cause Naruto a lot of pain once he was free. Shukaku screamed, I'll kill you, Uzumaki Naruto. You will die. You will suffer. As he thrashed around in Gaara's hurt body and looked at Naruto with black eyes and yellow star-shaped pupils, wishing the chakra chains wouldn't stop him from transforming fully. Shut up, Naruto said. He then gave Gaara a backhand to the face and looked over to see that Shukaku was getting even more angry. Shukaku said, you filthy human. You're just like everyone else. You take what doesn't belong to you. But Naruto had had enough and used Kami's fear to get the Biju to shut up. And what better way to do it than to push Sabaku no Gaara's body against a tree and have the Kabikirobocho come out with the hole closest to the hilt pinning its target even more? Listen to me, Shukaku. I am not like the other humans you are used to dealing with. I have neither the time nor the patience to deal with your insane stupidity. I am like Gaara, and like Gaara, I spent most of my life being hated, attacked, and abused. The only difference is that your sand kept any physical hits from hitting him until now, but I can't say the same for his mind. Shukaku asked Naruto, You hold Kurama? Naruto said yes, but he didn't say that his Biju hadn't talked to him or told him his real name. Yes, but I don't use his power. I use my own. I train, sweat, and bleed until I pass out with no strength left. I do this every day since my mother showed up. She took me in, showed me love, gave me a purpose, and gave me hope. This is something your village denied your host and, in a way, yourself, Naruto said, and Shukaku nodded. You don't know how humiliating it was for me. They locked me in a tiny tea kettle during times of peace and then put me into their mostly unwilling hosts when getting ready for war. They saw me as a weapon. A tool to be used when they saw fit and thrown away when my purpose was no longer needed. I hate them. Yelled Shukaku while Gaara's face and voice showed how angry he was. You think I don't know how humiliating it is? How about living a day without being beaten to within an inch of your life? How about surviving mobs kicking the snot out of you and hoping the ninja supposed to protect you step in before they get too bloodthirsty? How about living a life where people hate you and say that you are just a bastard child? That your parents don't love you? That they abandoned you? That they wished? Shukaku said, so you do know. We thought you were lying, as Naruto shook his head at him. I know what it is like to suffer, Shukaku. Just as I'm sure Gaara does too. Konoha buried my mother's clan and what they were known for, so I would believe I was a nobody. That I was not important like the other clans within the village. That I was a nameless, clanless orphan, and I should be eternally grateful to be even allowed to breathe the same air as them in Konoha, replied Naruto with Shukaku calming down a bit. Shukaku said, but you are still sane. You are not my host. Naruto smiled behind his headgear. There was a good chance I would have been like Gaara if my mother hadn't stepped in at the right time. Unlike your real biological father, my surrogate mother did care about me. She loves me as if I were her own blood child. I think such an offer could be made to Gaara if given the chance, as long as you don't take over his body and torture his mind, Naruto said, with Gaara's eyes narrowing at the offer. Trading one ruler for another doesn't seem like much of an improvement, Shukaku said before he felt the pressure of the blade on Gaara's neck dig deeper into the flesh. Unlike Gaara's scumbag father, my mother is a real caring parent. She has done more for me in the first week of being my mother than Konoha did from the time I was born until I met her. Do not assume she is like the cage of Suna, or I will make sure you are sealed into something much smaller than a tea kettle, Naruto said in a threatening tone. Well, if you say it that way, then show the way, said Shukaku, while Naruto shook his head. You think I'm stupid? That I'll let you go and expect you to do what I say right away. Give Gaara back his body right now, Naruto told Shukaku. Gaara narrowed his eyes, then nodded and gave the boy his body back. Gaara said, I heard everything you and Shukaku talked about just now. Take me to your mother. I want to see this love she has for you. Naruto took the blade off Gaara's neck but left the chakra chains on. Fine, but you have to treat her with respect. If you don't, I'll kill you and seal Shukaku in a tea kettle before I learn enough about seals to put him in a matchbox, said Naruto. Gaara nodded at the threat while looking at the huge sword in the blonde's hand. After Suna days, Kage was angry and asked, What do you mean Gaara failed? He doesn't fail. Baki kept his head down. I saw what I could, Kage-sama. Gaara was defeated by Uzumaki Naruto, the wave daimyo's son. He bombarded Gaara with water until the sand was too slow to use. Even Shukaku coming out in the end was impossible, as the Uzumaki was able to create chakra chains that seemed to suppress the power of Shukaku, and held your son against a tree with the Kabikirabocho pressed to his throat. Damn broken weapon. He's not my child, but why didn't you step in and take Gaara back to Suna? Asked the Kage, as Baki hung his head in shame. I wanted to save Gaara, but Mitarashi Anko was there. She saw me and was blocking my way to the boy. Also, the Uzumaki already had extra help with him. The risk of being caught and not being able to report to you was too high. I thought it would be better to avoid being caught to report my findings, said Baki. The Kage was not happy in the least, even though his Junin did the smart thing. And now the wave daimyo has my Jinchuriki. My weapon. I won't stand for this one bit, said the Kage, still furious about losing his weapon to that woman. I just heard that Konoha isn't happy with the wave daimyo either. Apparently, the Uzumaki boy was also their village's Jinchuriki. She also took the Uchiha clan head's eldest son and the former Snake Sanin's apprentice into her ranks. According to the trade agreement, all such kidnappings are invalid, and they are hers to command as she sees fit, Kage-sama, said Baki. That damn village was so full of itself, offering an alliance that was, in all but name, a form of service to them. Even worse, the Wind Daimyo was sending missions to Konoha while cutting Suna's budget over and over again until they could barely get by. The most important missions were given to Gaara to handle. Now that Gaara is gone, things will get harder, and even if Konoha loses their own Jinchuriki, it won't be enough to even things out. No, not even close. So what? I won't work with them on this. Let them dig their own graves. We'll handle this on our own and quickly. It won't be long before Iwa or Kumo hears about this and moves against us if they see a chance. We're lucky that the desert is so harsh that neither side would rush in to attack us, said the Kage as he thought about how to get his weapon back from Maleficent. He didn't care if his son lived or died. All that mattered was getting Shukaku back so that he could be sealed in someone who was better at using the Biju's power. At the moment in Konoha, Kakashi sighed because the genin team he had just made wasn't going as well as he had hoped. Sakura was a die-hard Uchiha fangirl. Sasuke was being a broody emo who thought his clan was better than everyone else, and the boys' clan wasn't helping. As for the third member of their team, Sai, a pale-skinned boy who was put there on Danzo's advice, well, the kid had a lot of trouble getting along with other people. To be specific, they called Sakura ugly and Sasuke a dickhead. Shut up, Baka. Sakura yelled before she punched Sai right in the face for calling Sasuke that horrible name. Who am I? The boy of Minato-sensei should be here. He would have fit right in with this group. At least, I think he'd be great for it, Kakashi thought as he watched the three of them work together badly and the Chunin exams were coming up quickly. The Hokage also wanted to convince the Wave Daimyo that Naruto should come to Konoha to fight Kakashi in a show match. Before the Chunin exam nominations came up, he had to change his schedule between training himself to get stronger. He had been slacking off since he left Anbu, and training his genin team in the basics of teamwork, which was a chore in and of itself. Not long after that, he called an end to the day's training, hoping that their respected clans and families would fill in any gaps in their training. The Junin went to a bar with his other Junin after his 3 Mons students left. They ate, drank, and talked about what might happen to their genin. So, are you going to nominate your group for the Chunin exams? Asked Kurenai. Kakashi gave a small shrug, since this was the first time they really got together to talk about this. It hasn't been easy to get them to work better as a team and trust each other, Kakashi sighed. I hear you. My generation of the Ino Shika Cho are a mess. Ino is bossy and whiny about training, Shikamaru is lazy, and Choji only seems to care about food, said Asuma, whose father had put him on a genin team when he got back to Konoha because the fire daimyo was not in a good mood. My team is a little better. Hinata is shy and nervous, but she's determined. Hiyashi-sama doesn't seem to think much of her. Hinata just needs that extra something to get her out of the shell she's been hiding in. What that is, I don't know. Sum's youngest Kiba is a bit of a pervert and horndog with a secret leering at Hinata when he thinks no one. My team is doing well. I waited a year for them to get the experience they needed to face the challenges of the Chunin exams this year. They are doing well, but the rumors about Uzumaki Naruto have them confused and asking questions about him. They seem to remember seeing glimpses of the boy, Guy said as Kurenai nodded. A month before he went missing, a group of bullies saved Hinata. She tried to thank him, but her caretaker Ko pulled her away and told her she could never see the Gaki again, Kurenai said, and Asuma nodded. I remember that day and the next week because I was here on business for the fire daimyo and my dad to deliver some reports. The Hyuga clan sent some of its members after the kid, mostly branch family if I remember correctly, and they beat the crap out of him. Poor Gaki was in the hospital for over a week, and the Hyuga clan as a whole refused to even apologize for their actions. They thought that a lowly orphan for a piece of commoner. Did you find out why? Kurenai asked with interest. Yeah, I asked. Dad said, the Hyuga clan has a lot of power in Konoha and in the fire daimyo's court with powerful nobles. Losing their support hurts my ability to run Konoha well. To keep the peace and the people happy, Naruto has to suffer, and the people who did it won't be punished, said Asuma, with the Junin at the table looking dumbfounded. So an innocent child gets hurt and the person who did it gets away with it just because they know people in high places, said Kurenai, and Guy and Kakashi nodded in agreement. Agreed, but karma has a way of balancing things out, Guy said. He thought that for every high, there was a low, and that life balanced things out. In what way? Kakashi asks, interested. Yandaimi's son is now the adopted son of the Wave Daimyo. He is also an Uzumaki by blood and related to the Senju clan because the Uzumaki clan were cousins to them. He can now pull some major political punches now or when he is older. If Naruto is really an Uzumaki, he will not forgive or forget what people in Konoha did to him, especially if Maleficent is encouraging that side of Naruto when. Asuma said, if Naruto gets his way, the Hyuga are going to pay through the nose, and Guy laughed a little. Guy said, this is an Uzumaki, and Kushina's child at that. They will pay much more than you think, because he knew how cruel Kushina was as a kunoichi and did everything he could to avoid getting on her bad side. Oh shit, Kakashi said, and Asuma and Kurenai both thought the same thing. Asuma, Kurenai, and even Guy all thought, oh shit, you're right. Wave Country. Daimyo's castle, 1 week later. Gaara was happy. Better than anything else he ever did. How could he not? Both Maleficent and Naruto looked at his seal. It turned out that the woman had magical powers that made the seal on him stronger, and Naruto was able to add to it so that Shukaku couldn't whisper in his head. This made it safe for him to sleep without worrying about the Biju getting out. After that, Maleficent used a simple spell on Gaara to put him into a deep sleep that lasted about a week. Now Gaara felt like a huge weight had been taken off his shoulders. Even worse, Maleficent wanted her to be Naruto's brother. She also wanted him to be her son, which surprised him and made his new brother very happy. Maleficent had told Gaara that she understood his pain because she had been hurt and betrayed a lot before she met Naruto. When she first met Naruto, she wanted to give him a loving family and home, and now she was doing the same for Gaara. After thinking about it for a moment, the boy graciously accepted the offer. He even called Maleficent Ka-san before giving her a warm hug. The only bad thing was that he couldn't fix the damage he'd done to his real family, Kankuro and Tamari, by helping them. The next time he saw them, it was possible that they would be his enemies and try to kill him on their father's orders. Gaara didn't care much for his male sire, but he did care about his two sisters, and he wanted to give them a chance to make up with them. But what if they still wanted him dead? Well, he would just have to cross that bridge when he got there. Naruto asked Gaara, "How are you feeling?" Gaara smiled a real smile at his new brother. "Good. My mind is clearer now, and I no longer feel the need to kill everything around me," Gaara said calmly as he felt his sand moving around him instead of through the Biju inside him, who had helped in that way. "Good to hear. You also need to have more of an arsenal in your way of fighting. You can only use your sand for so long before someone does what I did and drowns you in water. My advice is to find out what you don't have a lot of strength in and work on it," said Naruto with Gaara nodding since it made perfect sense. Find out what your weakness was and work on it to make it a strength. When Maleficent came to greet them, the two stopped on their way to the training area, and Gaara bowed down to his new mother right away. His mind was set on the idea that she would keep loving him like she does Naruto and not hold the attack on Wave that he led at his stupid father's order against him. And Shukaku's strong will. Gaara whispered, "Ka-san," hoping the woman wouldn't mind him calling her by that name so soon. "Ka-san," Naruto said in a louder voice, but he was still polite and kind to the woman who had taken them in. Maleficent asks, "Gaara and Naruto, how are my two boys doing?" She wanted to know how they were doing after Gaara's week-long nap, which helped fix the poor boy's broken mind. "We're fine, Ka-san," Naruto said happily. Gaara said, "We were about to go train in the courtyard. Brother wants me to learn to work on skills other than sand, so he wants me to learn to do that." Maleficent nodded. "I agree with his assessment. There may come a time when your sand won't help you fight someone who's good with water and you're surrounded by a lot of it. My advice to you is to start with the basics of what you know, what you don't know, and how to change what you don't know into what you do know," Maleficent said, and Gaara nodded in agreement. "Ka-san, I want to apologize for what I did. I want to thank you for taking me in and calling me your son. I haven't been called that in a long time," Gaara whispered as he looked up at the woman, half expecting her to frown, maybe slap him, and use her power to throw his body into the nearest body of water to drown. Instead, she smiled up at the boy, knelt down so her face was almost level with Gaara's, and gave him a warm hug that made the ninja's mind feel better. After Uncle Yashimaru tried to kill him, he thought he'd never feel this way again. But he could get used to it. "Like Naruto, you are my son, and no one will be able to say otherwise. All I ask is that you trust me and do what I say when I need you to," Maleficent told Gaara. She wanted him to know that she was not only his new mother, but also the daimyo of this land, and therefore had the final say in everything. "Yes, Ka-san," Gaara said happily, right before Haku walked in with an angry vibe that Naruto could feel. "Maleficent-sama, I just saw Jiraiya and Tsunade of the Sannin cross the bridge. They are heading here. They told the samurai guarding the bridge they needed to see you. They did not say what and threatened to use violence and possibly destroy a large portion if not all of the bridge should they not be allowed to see you," said Haku with Maleficent frowning at the fact Jiraiya was back here and had brought his female teammate with him. "It looks like your training outside will have to wait. You two will stay next to me the whole time. Haku, get Itachi and Anko, too. I want all of you next to me in case this is a distraction to take you all by surprise," Maleficent said in a firm voice. "What about Tayuya and Karen?" Naruto asks, worried about their safety even though he didn't know where they were at the moment. "Don't worry, my child. They are at the ruins of the Uzumaki clan, trying to learn more about the clan arts. At the moment, only we know they are there," said Maleficent, while Naruto nodded and gave Gaara a look that said, "Keep that to yourself for now." Gaara knew what it meant and nodded in agreement. It was like he had a new family. A family full of love and care. He would get angry with anyone who tried to take them away or hurt them. After a while in the throne room. "I'm a little surprised you came here to see me, Jiraiya-san, and even more so that you brought another person with you. Especially since your own daimyo told you that you no longer had the right to be Naruto's guardian," Maleficent said, with both the Toad Sannin and Tsunade frowning. "Yes, he did. Luckily for me and Konoha as a whole, there is one person who can challenge the guardianship of Naruto," Jiraiya said, pointing to the woman who was with him. Maleficent said, "Her? And what does this woman have to do with my son's happiness here in Wave?" As the blonde woman with a big bust stepped forward. "I am Senju Tsunade of the Senju clan. The Senju clan and the Uzumaki clan are cousin clans. I want to raise Naruto as if he were my own son," Tsunade said, making Maleficent frown. "Really? Cousin clans?" Does that mean that one of your ancestors is related to the other clan? Asked Maleficent. The Senju woman nodded. Yes. Even my grandmother's side of the family is Uzumaki. She married Senju Hashirama, who became the Shoden Hokage and is one of the reasons why Konoha exists now, Tsunade said, hoping to impress Maleficent in front of her. Instead, it seemed to make the horned ruler dislike the Senju woman. I see. I trust you. You are not lying when you say that. I even have the power to see that you are related to my son. But you have left him alone ever since he was born. What gives? Maleficent said this as Tsunade looked down in shame. It was my job to look after him. Jiraiya couldn't because he had to be on the road all the time for his spy network. I didn't have that kind of reason, Tsunade said as she saw the woman on her throne narrow her eyes. Ignoring your silly excuse and the fact that you didn't have one, you left Konoha to get away from your natural duty to protect and love Naruto. This means you left him on purpose. Why? You hated him, right? Did you hate him being there? Even now, but it's cleverly hidden? Do you see my poor son as a cruel way to remember what you lost? What did your beautiful village lose? Asked Maleficent as Tsunade looked at her and then at Naruto, who gave her a small glare for leaving him when he needed her the most. No. I went away because I was scared. It's not him. But I was really afraid of me. I was afraid I wouldn't be able to take care of him well. I had never had a child before. I've never raised a child, and the closest thing I had was my little brother before he died on a mission for Konoha, Tsunade said, making Maleficent's eyes narrow even more in anger. You didn't want to be a poor mother. I see. It looks like cowardice is your reason. And while you were traveling without Naruto, what did you do when you were away from the village? What bad habit did you have while this boy was in pain? Who is this boy standing next to me? This boy, along with his brother Sabaku no Gara, who just got a new job, has become my greatest joy in the world. A gift from the gods to every woman who wants to have children. A present you foolishly threw away. Tell me. Maleficent told Tsunade. At this point, Tsunade was feeling so guilty that she was almost in tears. It had been bothering her since she went back to Konoha to do the job she had run away from. When she got there, she saw people cheering that the demon brat had been taken away. Later, they cheered about how the boy was in a coma when the Sandaime made up that lie as a cover story. She wanted to smash some heads. A lot of heads. She had made a mistake. The accusation hurt her heart, and the looks from the woman and the boy kept stabbing her. To make matters worse, they had every right to judge her on this matter. One had done for Naruto what Tsunade had failed to do and had done an excellent job. The other was Naruto himself, who had bonded with Maleficent, calling her his mother, and was denouncing anyone from Konoha. Anyone who would seek to remove Naruto from Konoha. Tsunade felt bad about doing this to Naruto, but she wanted to be there for him and be a good godmother to the boy. I got drunk on sake and lost all my money gambling. I had no other choice. Sake stopped me from feeling guilty, and gambling took my mind off the feeling that I should go back to Konoha. I tried to think about cards and gambling machines instead of a blonde-haired baby who reached out to me the one time I saw him before he ran away, Tsunade said. Naruto's eyes narrowed and his anger rose, and he wanted to kill this woman right now if only to send her head back to Konoha. Maleficent's hand on his shoulder and Gaara's on the other kept him from killing the Sannin with all the anger he could muster. On the other side of the throne, Itachi didn't say anything, but it was clear in his eyes that he didn't like how this woman had left a baby Naruto when he reached for her at that age of needing love. Your case for taking care of Naruto and being his surrogate mother is very strong. Maleficent said in a sarcastic way. Hey. Don't bother Tsunade. She may have left, but when I told her Naruto was in trouble, my Heim came running back and wanted to make things right, Jiraiya said. Maleficent gave him a look for his trouble, and it was clear she wasn't at all happy that they were here now. And she's been doing a terrible job ever since. In fact, Tsunade failed the moment she left my son and left Konoha to follow her bad habits instead of doing what was right. I can't stand how cowardly you and your teammate are, my dear, Maleficent said, her frown getting worse by the second. Still, I want to be a part of his life. I want him to be with me in Konoha. All I want is a chance to become the person I should have been from the start, Tsunade begged Maleficent, whose eyes narrowed. Request turned down. Senju, you had your chance. You were given the chance and honor of being Naruto's surrogate mother. I have no reason to even think about letting you near him again, let alone sharing any kind of parental guardianship with you. Maleficent said, as Tsunade's eyes filled with tears and she gave the dark witch an angry look. He is related to us by blood. Tsunade said, and Maleficent gave her a cold smile. Yes. He is related to you by blood. Family. Who you didn't care about. But you already know what people say about times like that. What you lose, I gain. Maleficent said, while Tsunade was getting more and more angry by the minute. Wait. Let's not act too quickly and do something we'll be sorry about. Why not make a bet? A guess? The winner of the bet gets to be Naruto's guardian, Jiraiya said as he moved between Tsunade and Maleficent, who was still sitting on her throne. Who came in last? Maleficent asked Jiraiya after he had thought for a while. The winner decides how much the loser has to pay in the end, Jiraiya said. Tsunade was shocked by what he said, so she grabbed the idiot and pulled him close so they could whisper. Are you crazy? You basically said that the winner doesn't have to pay the loser anything. Tsunade said in a whisper, and Jiraiya nodded. It's the only way to convince her. Just go with it, Jiraiya said as he turned back to face Maleficent. That's cool. Just out of interest, what was the bet you were thinking about? Maleficent asks, wanting to hear the idea before she violently shot it down. Soon, the Chunin exams will be held. To be exact, in a few months. People from all over will come to watch the ninja from the 5 biggest shinobi villages compete. The idea I'm putting forward is a match. A simple exhibition match between Naruto and Hitaki Kakashi, the last student of Naruto's father who is still alive. If Naruto wins, you will still be Naruto's guardian, and no one from Konoha will be able to get in the way. Ever. If Kakashi wins, Tsunade becomes Naruto's guardian, and he goes back to Konoha to be raised by the people there, Jiraiya said, while Naruto narrowed his eyes and knew what the Sannin were trying to do. It sounds good. But why should I think about this at all? Even if the bet were fair, there's no reason for me to agree to this stupid bet. Right now, no one else wants to be Naruto's guardian. The agreement was made official when the Fire Daimyo signed the contract and put a seal on it. Why would I put my son through a pointless match where the risk isn't worth the reward, especially since I already have everything I need? What do I still have to gain by taking part in this exhibition match? Maleficent said, and Jiraiya knew he had to be careful. Consider it. Now is the best time to tell the rest of the world about Wave. There will be all the important and powerful people from all of the elemental countries. You can tell these nobles and daimyos that your country has goods they might want and that your new bridge can help you get them to them. You could do more business during this time, and having Naruto compete would show the world what you've done with him, Jiraiya told Naruto as Maleficent looked on. She then tapped the boy on the shoulder to get his attention. Naruto, what do you think? Do you want to fight a former student of your father? Is the chance that you'll lose me as your surrogate mother worth the chance that Wave will get more money and fame in the future? Asked Maleficent as Naruto closed his eyes for a second to think about what was going on. No. I won't bet on you. Not today. Not at all. Wave is alright. Our country is getting stronger and doing well. This plan is to keep me in Konoha and make you forget that I'm your son. I'd rather kill myself than give what I have to you and the others here, Naruto said in response to the woman's question. Maleficent nodded, but Jiraiya and Tsunade were shocked by his answer. We agree. Tell your Sandaime Hokage that my answer to his challenge and trick is a no, since it's clear that he came up with it. Now get out of the castle and land. Maleficent said in a cold voice as Tsunade looked at him pleadingly, trying to think of something to say. It was a risky one, but it was still one. What if I make this offer? Tsunade asked as she pulled out a necklace with a single green stone in the middle. And why would I care about this jewel in particular? Maleficent asks, but she could tell that there was more to this jewel than what she could see. My grandfather used to own it. I got it from him. It's worth enough to buy several mountains, said Tsunade, while Maleficent narrowed her eyes at the gem hanging from the necklace and knew there was more to it than that. Maleficent thought to herself, there is something about the gem she is holding. It reminds me of my power, but it is different. Does she know? And could it hurt Naruto or Gaara if it got into the wrong hands? What say you? Tsunade said, the winner gets Naruto and the necklace, but Jiraiya didn't expect her to say that. Itachi whispered to his mistress, Maleficent-sama, I think Naruto-sama should take the bet, as his mistress glanced at him briefly. Why? Explain quickly, Maleficent said to her servant in a whisper. Tsunade-sama is known as the legendary sucker in all of the elemental countries because she has a bad track record when it comes to gambling. She just about wins. When Tsunade wins, usually bad things happen to her along the way. Not only that, but the jewel is also said to have magical powers, which made Maleficent narrow her eyes even more. What kind of magic does Itachi have? Maleficent said in a whisper, even though she thought it might have something to do with the Biju. Itachi whispered, when combined with the Mokuton bloodline of the Senju, it strengthens the bloodline and can stop the power of a Biju or Jinchuriki. Maleficent's eyes widened, then narrowed again as she saw a jewel like that in the hands of someone so careless. I see. Thank you for telling me about Itachi, Maleficent said in a whisper before turning to look at her son. Who are you? Asked Naruto, because he had seen her face change in different ways as she thought about this bet, and it worried him. Naruto, do you believe me? Naruto nodded as Maleficent asked her. Always, Ka-san, Naruto said without a doubt. Then you have to believe me now. I'm going to take the bet. Maleficent said, I want you to take part in this match against Hitaki Kakashi. Naruto was shocked, but the two Sannin were happy. If that's what you want, Ka-san, I'll respect your choice, Naruto said, and Maleficent smiled at him before turning to the two Sannin and giving them a look so cold it could freeze the sun. Jiraiya thought, what a mama's boy. If he had been raised right in Konoha, this would never have happened. He knew that Minato and Kushina were never like that to the women they looked up to when they were growing up. When Kakashi won, he would have to change that. He could have Inoichi do a strong memory wipe of the woman or change the memories of Maleficent to make her seem like a bad person. Well, they're worse than usual. Alright. We've agreed. Go tell your Sandaime Hokage about this deal, and I'll send a messenger to the Fire Daimyo to tell him about the terms of the bet, Maleficent told Jiraiya and Tsunade, who both nodded and seemed happy to hear this. Even though each one had a different reason. Can you imagine? She agreed to go out with him. Just like Sensei said she would. Jiraiya exclaimed happily when they got to Fire Country Land. Tsunade just smiled, but it was clear she wasn't as excited as he was. She did, yes. We had to do a lot of convincing, though, Tsunade said softly as she held her grandfather's necklace in her hand and felt tears coming. She could almost see the face of her grandfather in it. Sad to say, his face wasn't smiling or frowning. Instead, it looked like he was waiting for his granddaughter to decide what expression she would get. He couldn't say what he wanted to say because she wasn't sure what she would do with Naruto in the future. She didn't like the idea of sending the boy back to Konoha, but she did want to be his godmother and raise him the way she should have from the start. Only her own fear and the ghosts from her past had kept her from doing something like that. The name is Nawaki. Dan. The name is Kushina. As a whole, her family. Everyone else was dead except for her. How could she take a chance on raising Naruto when she knew there was a chance he would fall young like the others? She had Shizune, but the girl had been trained a lot before and after Tsunade took her in. Tsunade raised the girl, who was only a teenager at the time, to be a good adult kunoichi in a fight. At the time, she didn't think she could raise Naruto because she had never taken care of a baby before. She didn't feel like a mother. At the time, she didn't really know the boy, and it was clear that the baby Naruto wanted her to be his mother, but she turned him down. It was thought to be one of the worst things a woman could do to a baby if she turned her back on him when he reached for her and said, "Love me. Love me, please," he said in his own cute way. Oh, no. She was ready to cry. Don't be afraid. Once Naruto is back in Konoha, we can erase his memories of that witch, and you can fill in the blanks. Even though we'll have to seal away his power and start over to make sure he's ready to defend Konoha, it's not a big deal. Ah! Yelled Jiraiya right before he got a hard punch in the stomach. I don't want Jiraiya to forget about him. Or get them changed. I don't want his power to be sealed so that you and Hiruzen can change him to suit your tastes. I want to make him love me again and forgive me for being too scared to raise him. I can't do that if you take away his memories and show how sorry I am. Tsunade almost yelled at Sannin, who was on the ground. It doesn't depend on you, Tsunade. Hiruzen told me to seal up Kakashi's power once he wins his match and make sure Inoichi can work on his mind to give us a clean slate, Jiraiya said, with Tsunade looking very angry. So the teacher lied. I won't raise Naruto, Tsunade said, making Jiraiya wince. It depends. We need you to be around so you can teach Naruto how to deal with the bad things that will happen to him and keep him from lashing out. As for his overall development, we'll have him hang out with other ninja who can teach him different things, Jiraiya said, while Tsunade narrowed her eyes at him. Where is he going to live? Was it a lie that he would live with me? Tsunade asked her former teammate and fellow Sannin as she glared at him. Yes. Sensei found him an apartment where he could live by himself, Jiraiya said, but he didn't look at her right away, so she knew something was wrong with his answer. Where can I find the apartment? Where? Tsunade asked as she grabbed the man by the shirt and looked him straight in the eye. It doesn't matter, Tsunade. Just drop it, Jiraiya said before he was slammed into a nearby tree and Tsunade had her fist ready to fire at his head. Either you tell me where the apartment is, or I'll drop you here and lie to Sensei about how you died, Tsunade said, and Jiraiya could tell by the look in her eyes that she meant it. It's between the slums and the red light district, Jiraiya said, making the woman in front of him look very angry. I've been there. It looks bad. Basically going bad from the inside out. For years, the councils have been covering it with red paperwork to stop the Hokage from cleaning it up. Basically, they are in charge of the area around that part of the village. They'll use it to their advantage and hide any abuse they do to Naruto, said Tsunade. Jiraiya winced because she knew it was true, but she wasn't going to stop him. Tsunade, the Kyuubi can heal him. Jiraiya said, he can take the punishment, just before he was hit against the tree again. You wouldn't say that if they were going after Minato when he was Naruto's age. We both know that if someone hurt your student, you would storm into Sensei's office and demand the heads of the people who did it. Hell, you'd go after them yourself and put their dead bodies all over the village square with a sign that said, Jiraiya was here. So everyone would know who taught them a lesson, said Tsunade, who could see Jiraiya frowning at the mention of his former student. That's not the same, Tsunade. Minato is. Was my. Jiraiya started to say, but Tsunade cut him off. What did Jiraiya do? Your classmate? Your son by proxy? Everything you had ever wanted in life for a student who could give you fame and glory on the side. To be proud of? When I had to be around you in public, Jiraiya, I saw how you acted. Always bragging about Minato doing this. Or Minato doing that. As if he was strong because of what you had taught him. With Naruto, you would have never made it that far. Tsunade said, you didn't even want to try with Naruto. As the man narrowed his eyes at her. Maybe, but I'm not going to say sorry. As his godparent, Minato and Kushina may have given him to me, but that doesn't mean I have to be there for him all the time. I won't be there every step of the way to hold his hand. That's not what a sensei or godparent is with a child, Jiraiya said as Tsunade clenched her teeth in anger. You are a total and complete jerk. To be a godparent, you have to raise a child and teach him how to live. Maleficent was right to take Naruto away from you and put him under her care. You were a failure as a genin when you were young, and you're a total failure as a godfather now that Naruto was born, Tsunade said, making Jiraiya look more and more angry. Being a failure for most of his life had always been a sore spot for him. Slug Princess, what about you? You also weren't really a part of his life. Too scared to become a surrogate mom. You tucked your tail and ran like a dog that had been hit. You're just as bad of a godparent as I am, Jiraiya said back, while Tsunade's angry eyes now had water running down her face. I have met Jiraiya. Unlike you, I can at least admit that I hurt Naruto when I didn't pay enough attention to him and try to make up for it. You're not even going to apologize to him. You don't even care that what Sensei wants to do will make him sad. Yelled Tsunade angrily. Jiraiya didn't look at her. Konoha's happiness as a whole is much more important, Tsunade. One child's suffering over a little displeasure for the village's superiority for years to come is hardly a price worth flinching over when paying for it, Jiraiya said before he was punched hard in the face and felt his jaw break in multiple places. You don't understand why I didn't want to be with you. I could always see how ugly you were, Jiraiya. I could deal with how perverted you are, but the fact that your actions in the past and present have made your soul ugly is a whole different story. If I capture Naruto, I won't let you hurt him or turn him into a weapon for Konoha. To stop that from happening, I will fight every ninja, every Anbu, you, and even Sensei. Tsunade said to Jiraiya, who was staring at her from behind his broken and swollen face. Part of me almost hopes he beats Kakashi, so this whole thing will be Sensei's plan to be stupid. Then she walked away. This isn't good. I knew Tsunade was acting this way before, but I didn't think she would get this bad or this emotional. She has become more and more like a mother to Naruto over the years. When some people said bad things about Naruto, she broke some bodies to prove it. Now the only question is whether or not she will go with Naruto. Or will she kill everyone she sees to stop us from helping him fulfill his destiny? Jiraiya thought as he rubbed his swollen face and winced when he touched it. He wouldn't look at girls in the hot springs or flirt with them. Naruto is there. Naruto stood in the training area, which was a courtyard. He looked very serious. He looked like a leader giving an important order to his troops. In a way, that's what he was doing. Because Haku, Gaara, Tayuya, Karen, Itachi, and Anko were standing in front of him, and Maleficent was watching from the side. Most of you here know that I'll be facing Hitaki Kakashi in an exhibition match at the Chunin exams in Konoha in a few months. A match where my mom's right to be my guardian was at stake. If I lose to my enemy, Senju Tsunade will become my new guardian, and Konoha will use that to turn me into a weapon they can control with a snap of their fingers. Since time is running out and my opponent is a high-level Junin who was taught by my late father, the Yondaime Hokage, we need to step up my training so much that it would be cruel. I have to train until even my huge amount of chakra is used up to the point where it doesn't exist anymore. I have to work out until my body can't take it anymore. This is where you all come in, Naruto said, and he saw Itachi, Anko, and Gaara nod because they knew this was important. When they were in Orochimaru's service, Karen and Tayuya had never been forced to go through such a hard, high-level training session. This made them look a little nervous. Hitaki Kakashi is a skilled ninja. Even the Sharingan, which was given to him by Uchiha Obito before he died, is hidden under his headband. He's copied more than 1,000 jutsus. Itachi added, he won't be easy to beat, since he knew Kakashi's reputation from his time in the Anbu. That's even more reason for me to work out until I drop. Haku, I need you to sneak into Konoha for a short time and watch Kakashi long enough to figure out how dangerous he might be. Itachi, we will work together to figure out how to fight the Sharingan if I make him use his own. Anko will help with sneaking up on the boy, setting up traps, and coming up with other ways to attack him with kunai, shuriken, and other weapons. Gaara, I'll have you spar with me for a while and teach you some things so you don't have to rely so much on your sand, Naruto said as the others nodded. Karen asked Naruto, what about us, cousin? He knew that the two girls wanted to know what they would be doing. We will all learn Fuinjutsu together as a group. Since it is our birthright as members of the Uzumaki clan, we must get better at it. To not have this skill would be like telling fish they can't swim in water. That's like telling a bird it can't fly, Naruto said, and both girls nodded in agreement. Sounds like a ton of fun, cousin, said Tayuya, who wanted to hear more about how she could use things other than her flute to do genjutsu or call on Oni to fight for her. This needs to be taken seriously, given what is at stake. If Konoha finds out you or Karen are here, if they haven't already, Orochimaru will probably find out too. You and Karen will need to be much stronger to stop anything that comes your way. Konoha will not let anyone else have blood from a member of the Uzumaki clan. They want to own our clan because our family is the only one that can hold Kyuubi inside of us. We are all the best at Fuinjutsu, which makes us all good candidates for villages to hire to make new seals or maybe break old ones. Kumo would want you to join the Uzumaki clan so he could bring up new members and turn some of them into seal masters. They would want the latter from us so they could target seals like the Hyuga clan's cagebird seals and break them, Naruto said. Itachi and Anko had taught him a lot about the world and how shinobi villages work, especially when it comes to the value of a nearly extinct clan or a single ninja with skills few could match. Well, when you put it that way, said Tayuya, who knew that Orochimaru wouldn't expect her or Karen to learn anything about Fuinjutsu. She was sure that the snake fucker would just die if he knew that both of them could kill him and that they were both from the Uzumaki clan. That would be so funny. Orochimaru doesn't die because of a kunai, old age, or a failed jutsu experiment. But from being shocked that he was holding two full-blooded Uzumaki clan members and didn't know it until it was too late. We only have a few months left until I go into what I think of as enemy territory. When that time comes, I want to be so good that even the Hokage would start to sweat, Naruto said, his eyes burning with determination. He knew what was at stake and would do whatever it took to meet it. He wouldn't let anyone hurt his family. Hitaki Kakashi would not beat him. He wouldn't let Konoha beat him. No more.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.